Thank you, Peter. It's a remarkably good turnout for this time in the morning on a Saturday. So, the Fitzwilliam Museum in Cambridge is worried that landscape paintings might evoke dark nationalistic feelings. Dulci et decorum est pro patria mori. It is sweet and proper to die for one's country. Those are the words of the Roman poet Horace, but are probably more known to most Brits through the work and poetry of Wilfred Owen. Owen came so close to surviving World War I that his mother was informed of his death as the bells rang out on Armistice Day. Every British schoolchild will have inhaled from his poems the mustard gas, the tangible hell, the fire and the world torn apart by mechanized warfare. To my mind, his words flutter like a flag at the beginning of a period of disenchantment, repudiation, and doubt. Patriotism is bitter, not sweet. There is a kind of visceral horror, revulsion at the idea of patriotic love that you'll be familiar with. But Owen's poetry is often contrasted with Rupert Brooke's. This is part of his poem, The Soldier. If I should die, think only this of me, that there's some corner of a foreign field that is forever England. There shall be in that rich earth a richer dust concealed, a dust whom England bore, shaped, made aware, gave once her flowers to love, her ways to roam, a body of England's breathing English air, washed by rivers, blessed by sons of home. Some people sniff at this as too sentimental, but I think it taps into something that many of us experience. It resonates somewhere deep in your soul, in your bones, this humming love of home, this feeling of being happily and inextricably part of your home and honored by it. Her flowers to love, her ways to roam. Even in the hymn Jerusalem, it's Christ's feet that walk upon England's mountains green. Indeed, unlike the Latin, which tends towards the abstract, the Anglo-Saxon in our language connects to the things that you can touch and taste and feel. England, like the English, is found there in something like the bond of touch between a mother and a baby. It's no mistake, then, that the countryside has become such a target of the repudiators. When most of us think of England, we recall impressions of England's face, as you might do with a loved one. These impressions have loomed large in our collective memory over the centuries. Take Shakespeare's Richard II, for example. This royal throne of kings, this sceptred isle, this earth of majesty, this seat of Mars, this other Eden, demi-paradise, this fortress built by nature for herself, this happy breed of men, this little world, this precious stone set in a silver sea, this blessed plot, this earth, this realm, this England. Or George Orwell's affectionate description of coming home from the Spanish Civil War. He writes, "The railway cuttings smothered in wildflowers, the deep meadows where the great shining horses browse and meditate, the slow-moving streams bordered by willows, the green bosoms of the elms, the larkspurs in the cottage garden, the barges on the miry river, the familiar streets, the posters telling of cricket matches and royal weddings, the men in bowler hats, the pigeons in Trafalgar Square, red buses, the blue policemen, all sleeping the deep, deep sleep of England, from which sometimes I fear that we shall never wake till we are jerked out of it by the roar of bombs." Or what about Laurie Lee's description of his childhood village? Like a deep running cave still linked with its antic past, a cave whose shadows were cluttered by spirits and by laws still vaguely ancestral. This cave that we inhabited looked backwards through chambers that led to our ghostly beginnings and had not yet been tidied up or scrubbed clean by electric light. It was something, he said, we just had time to inherit and dimly know. the blood and beliefs of generations who had been in this valley since the Stone Age. That continuous contact has at last been broken and the deeper caves sealed off. 20th century writers like George Orwell and Laurie Lee often sound as if they have been wrenched out of their mother's arms, as if we all were. And that's why these impressions come to us now more like memories of a loved one who has passed away. We're constantly inundated with spiteful jibes about the loss by those determined to extinguish every last morsel of those things that we're attached to. The countryside is racist, gardening is racist, your heroes are racist, give them all up and tear them all down. But why do I think that these impressions matter so much? Well, Roger Scruton wrote about the enchantment of the things of home. Home has its customs, its rituals, special times and places, he wrote. And that enchantment, he said, was a personalizing force. He said it endows objects, this is a quote, endows objects, customs, and institutions with moral character so that we respond to them as we respond to one another. And a country is a home with its own rituals and customs, as Roger might say, making it habitable to people like us whose greatest need is for home. I could give hundreds of examples from our literature, but I don't need to, because I would bet that each and every one of you is already thinking of your own right now. Cutting holly in Epping Forest at dusk, where my dad used to ride his bike in the 1950s all the way from Dagenham to get the biggest conkers. Watching the horses over the dry stone wall in Bishop Auckland, the sound of church bells, the parades of the Royal British Legion. A dog by your feet in a country pub, bluebells in the woods, cows drinking from the bank of the River Stour at golden hour, cormorant-covered rocks in Lindisfarne and the Farne Islands, Royal military parades down the Mall. You wouldn't be here today if you didn't love England, unless there are some BBC journalists who have snuck in at the back. Why hamstring a noble feeling like Brooks? I think his words capture a relatable truth. There is no risk involved in loving abstract things, but loving things that can be lost is painful, and that takes courage. That is why Roger Scruton wrote that those who die for their country do so not for some temporary arrangement, but in defense of something that aims to be permanent. This species of virtue, he wrote, is rapidly disappearing, and I think this is because we've allowed an unhospitable atmosphere to take root. A rationalistic, liberal worldview struggles with patriotism. It's prone to abstraction and is skeptical or even threatened by anything particular or relational. It tends towards boundlessness. As Roger Scruton wrote, liberal thinkers dreamt of world citizenship where, quote, the warm relationships of membership would be replaced by cool adherence to a scheme of abstract rights and duties. We are told that the morally superior thing is to be disinterested, to protect those farthest from us equally, and that those closest to us have no special claim. This strikes us as wrong, but we struggle to articulate why. Liberal morality requires impersonal judgment. Where you came from, or who your parents are, mustn't be allowed to affect your judgment. To this mind, patriotism can't be anything other than a vice, because it is by nature partial. It is love and loyalty of your home, not someone else's. Liberalism struggles to find room for home. It asks you to live in the abstract present of pure light, liberated from all those chains of attachment and boundedness. It tells us that only then will we be free. But the price of that freedom is to give up those things that bind us. It asks us to be creatures that we never have and never can be. Broadly, we've lost the intellectual tools to respond to this, but they're not irretrievable. Christianity teaches that we are fallen creatures. As Nigel Bigger puts it, ours is the responsibility of creatures, not of gods. He writes that individuals grow up in a particular time, place, and community and are inducted into particular forms of life by families, institutions, clubs, schools, and customs. It is natural to develop an affection and loyalty and gratitude towards them. In a similar way, Alistair MacIntyre pointed out that there is an alternative to the liberal perspective that views the limited, bounded quality of human beings as a prerequisite for making sense of virtue and moral action. After all, we can only act within a time and place towards other real people with whom we have some kind of relationship. Virtue does not exist in the abstract, and nor does England. Ladies and gentlemen, I love my country. I love England. And I believe that that is a virtue, not a vice. Now, it's a bit unorthodox, but I'm going to play you a speech now from the film The King, surprisingly with Timothy Chalamet, who I think might not necessarily agree with our politics. And I think it is a reimagining of the St. Crispin's Day from Shakespeare's Richard V.
What matters is that you know in your hearts that today you are that kingdom united. You are England. Each and every one of you. England is you. And it is the space between you. Fight not for yourselves. Fight for that space. Fill that space. Make it tissue. Make it mass. Make it impenetrable. Make it yours. Make it England. Make it England.
Each of us has been given to this time and this place and to those around us, our families, towns, cities, parishes, counties, to whoever is sitting next to you right now. To those who came before and to those who came after us, we are part of something right here, right now. Each and every one of us has been given to this moment here and now, so let's not waste it. The description in that speech of England as the space between you, the sinew, I think is perfect. This isn't some hammy, sentimental spiel about going back to something. That implies that history has ended. No, we are still part of history. And this is about going forward together and showing that we are worthy of our magnificent inheritance. Showing that love is not threatening, it is empowering. It doesn't exclude, it embraces. That we'll no longer degrade ourselves by living off the family silver, but regain the confidence to add to it. As Churchill said, let all the strong horses be pulling on the collar. Wilfred Owen's mother quoted a line on his gravestone from his poetry, "All death will he annul." But she omitted the question mark in his original poem. She meant it as a statement, all death will he annul. Our Parliament, just round the corner, right now is flying the flag of 3 crosses interlocking, the ultimate symbol of triumph over death and sin. As Bishop Barron said, it's a taunt. We were once a country that believed that God's power and majesty had conquered death itself. It's trivial, by comparison, to rise above this trap that we have set for ourselves, this culture of repudiation, to raise us from the dead. To quote the prophet Jeremiah, "What wrong did your fathers find in me that they went far from me and went after worthlessness and became worthless? Remember who you are, the dust whom England bore, shaped, made aware. And remember that yours is a patron saint who slays dragons."
Thank you very much to Emma. What a rousing way to start. We have time for 2 questions for Emma. If anyone's got any point. The gentleman here, and then well, let's start off with you, sir. There's a mic coming your way. There we go.
Yeah. Lots of talk of England, which is great. We're very close to St. George's Day. But you're stood in front of a flag which represents a greater union, a union which historically has probably been the most successful, or one of the most successful in the world. Are we giving up on the union?
Do you want to take 2 at once, or?
Do you want to answer that? Or?
Yeah. Well, the St. George's flag, as you alluded to, it's a union, so this is the intersecting crosses that I was referring to. My focus on England is not giving up on the union, but I do think that England is often an ignored country in the union. So my focus on England is more because historically this conference has been thought of mostly as a St. George's Day conference. But to focus, I think, on England is not to dismiss the importance of the union. I am a unionist. I think that we've grotesquely let down Northern Ireland. I think that that is a problem that still needs to be resolved. I'm very worried that Scotland will have another referendum in less than the promised generation. So yes, I think as a country, we have let down the union, but not just in political terms. I think every part of the union, every part of the country, not just England, is suffering, as I described, this culture of repudiation. Scotland is a bit different because they are a lot more comfortable with their own sense of national confidence. But England is the country, I think, that struggles most particularly with that culture of repudiation, not least because though the Scottish were a leading force in our colonial history as well, they do like to make it out as if they were colonised by the English rather than simply sharing a crown. So yes, I mean, the short answer to your question is yes, we have let down the union. I don't think that a Labour government is going to do much better than a Conservative government would do in that respect.
Any more points? Just one more point? I think you stunned people into silence, Emma.
Is that a good thing or a bad thing?
There's one, yes, sir. Yep, there we go.
Would it be any use semantically to draw a distinction between patriotism and nationalism? That patriotism is perhaps a positive force which is about, as you say, the love of country, the love of countrymen, the love of place, and nationalism is perhaps more to do with a perceived, a hatred of the foreign.
Completely. I think it's an important distinction to make that should be made more often. I don't know if you were picking up on the distinction that is sort of inherent in what I said, because this is a speech about patriotism, not about nationalism. From a Christian perspective, I think, in particular, Christianity reigns in nationalism because nationalism can, in a sense, become idolatrous. Patriotism is, as I say, a virtue. It's love of your country, and I think it's very important to make that historical distinction in the British context, in the English context, the difference between a country and a nation, because the nation is a later artificial thing, whereas the country is what Roger Scruton describes as the pre-political plural. It pre-exists any political form that it might take. And going back to the point about liberalism and abstraction, I think that one of the problems, and this has been highlighted by Roger Scruton, is that you need that pre-political. You need the country in order for even something like democracy or citizenship to make sense. Those things can't exist in the abstract without being rooted in some reality of a community that is bound together in a very real and meaningful and natural way.
Emma, thank you very, very much. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello. If you're enjoying the New Culture Forum channel and you believe in our mission, may I invite you to join our membership scheme at the link below or on our website, newcultureforum.org.uk. Our work is more important now than ever, and we have great plans ahead for the future, but we can't do it without your support. From as little as £3 per month, you can help ensure that we continue on our mission. As a member, you'll receive a range of benefits, including access to exclusive content, invitations to our private events, including here at our studios, free copies of our books, and much, much more, including, of course, our famous NCF mug. If you aren't able to become a member, then please help us by clicking this button and subscribing to our channel. It's completely free. Just remember to also click the bell icon so that you can get notifications when we post new videos. Thank you.